On a breezy Saturday evening at a small park on the edge of Fairfield, Connecticut, families gathered to enjoy the fading sun. Kids played soccer, and teens lounged on benches, earbuds in, scrolling through their phones. Among them was 16-year-old Ethan Sullivan, seated on a bench beneath a tall oak tree, casually flipping through a book he had brought along. His younger brother, Liam, was finishing up soccer practice, and Ethan had promised their mom he'd wait to walk him home. Ethan sported a fitted black suit with a crisp white shirt and polished black shoes, looking out of place but comfortable. He maintained a quiet demeanor, lost in the world of his book when the distant rumble of motorcycles suddenly pierced through the lull of the park. At first, it seemed just a group of bikers passing through, the engines echoing through the air louder than necessary. But tonight was different. Tonight, they rolled in, parking their bikes near the soccer field. 5 bikers, clad in leather jackets and dark jeans, stepped off, standing like sentinels, their serious expressions contrasting sharply with the joyful families surrounding them. Ethan noticed their attention quickly shifting to him, a creeping sense of unease settling in the pit of his stomach. He glanced up, catching their scrutinizing stares, so he forced himself to focus back on his book. However, calmness was a fleeting luxury. One of the bikers, a burly man with a shaved head, nudged his friends and started striding toward Ethan. As their heavy footsteps approached, Ethan set the book aside, preparing for what lay ahead. "What are you doing here, kid?" the burly man asked, his voice gruff, heavy with intimidation. Ethan hesitated, his mind racing. "Waiting for my brother," he replied, keeping his tone as polite as possible. The man smirked, glancing around at his friends. "Doesn't look like your kind of place." Ethan felt the heat rise in his cheeks but focused on maintaining his composure. "It's a public park," he countered smoothly, determined not to back down. The burly man stepped closer, his friends spreading out behind him, creating an intimidating semicircle. "Got a smart mouth." "Heh," he sneered. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he remained calm. He took a brief scan of the park, hoping someone would notice the rising tension under the oak tree. But everyone else's attention remained fixated on the soccer field where Liam's game was wrapping up. Years of karate training had taught Ethan the importance of observation and restraint. He didn't want to escalate this conflict if he didn't have to, but he recognized the threat. "Look, I don't want any trouble. I'm just here for my brother." The burly man leaned down closer, invading Ethan's personal space. "Trouble? Who said anything about trouble?" he taunted, the sneer on his face growing wider. Ethan remained unfazed. He shifted or repositioned his hands to a relaxed state, eyes locked with the man in front of him. But inwardly, he was calculating. How much time until Liam finished and could come up to help? How long until someone in the wider park noticed? "Leave him alone." A sudden voice broke through the tension. Ethan turned slightly to see Liam, a small 9-year-old with sweat on his forehead from practice, standing a few yards away. "Jordan, stay back," Ethan called, his voice firm but steady. The bikers turned their attention to the little boy, grinning like predators spotting an easier target. "This your brother?" one of them asked, pointing a gloved finger at Liam. "Maybe we should teach you both a lesson." Ethan felt his heart race, his pulse quickening with resolve. He stood up slowly, deliberately, the years of practice kicking in. He planted his feet firmly in the stance he had practiced countless times in the dojo. "Don't touch him," he stated, his voice calm yet edged with a hidden steel. The burly man laughed mockingly. "Look at this kid. Thinks he's tough." The others joined in their laughter, but Ethan didn't waver. He was well aware that silence could sometimes break the most stubborn form of aggression. "You're not going to do anything," one of the bikers sneered, stepping closer. That's when Ethan finally spoke again, his voice low and deliberate. "You really don't want to do this." The laughter ceased in its tracks. The bikers exchanged confused glances. Ethan's unwavering confidence took them aback, even if only momentarily. But the moment didn't last long, as the burly man lunged toward him. In a sudden flash, the burly biker swung his hand toward Ethan, aiming to shove him. But Ethan, prepared and fast, sidestepped the blow with deft movement. The biker stumbled, surprised. Quickly, Ethan executed a graceful maneuver, his hand striking the biker's wrist, twisting it away. The man grunted in pain, stepping back, fury bubbling forth in his expression. "What the?" he started, but Ethan interrupted him coolly. "I warned you," he said. The two remaining bikers rushed forward, not deterred by what had just happened. The first swung wildly, but Ethan easily ducked, his movements smooth and practiced. Before the biker could recover, Ethan unleashed a sharp kick to his knee, sending him crumpling to the ground with a cry. For a split second, the second biker hesitated, leading to Ethan pivoting and delivering a spinning kick to his side, effectively knocking the wind out of him. By then, the burly leader had regained himself and lunged at Ethan, both fists swinging. But Ethan stayed light on his feet, dodging everything thrown at him with a grace born of years of discipline and training. As a crowd began to gather around the park, parents, kids, even players paused to watch. The air became charged with tension. Someone had pulled out a phone, capturing every second of the unfolding scene. The leader charged again and tried grabbing the collar of Ethan's suit jacket, but Ethan twisted swiftly, slipping out of his grip. He delivered a precise strike to the man's solar plexus, causing him to stumble backward, gasping for air. "Enough!" Ethan's voice echoed loud enough to attract the crowd's attention. His stance remained strong, his eyes intense but devoid of malice. "I don't want to hurt you. Walk away." For a fleeting moment, it seemed like the bikers considered retreat. The leader wheezed, his expression darkening as he glared at Ethan, while the other two were still on the ground. "Let's go," the leader finally growled, waving at his comrades. They limped back to their motorcycles, muttering curses as they started the engines. But just as they began to pull away, the leader turned back, pointing fiercely at Ethan. "This ain't over, kid," he spat before roaring off with his crew. Ethan stood there, steadying his breath, the adrenaline still surging through him as the sound of the motorcycles faded. The crowd broke into applause, murmurs of admiration and disbelief rippling through them. Liam ran up, eyes wide with a blend of fear and awe. "Ethan, are you okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I'm fine," Ethan said, kneeling down and placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. "Let's head home." As they walked away, Ethan couldn't shake the ominous feeling that this encounter wasn't truly over. The laughter and cheers from the spectators slowly faded, but he could still hear the gritty threat lingering in the air, hanging between them like an unresolved question. The walk home was shrouded in silence, their sneakers tapping against the pavement. Liam kept sneaking glances at Ethan, a mix of admiration and worry etched on his face. "Ethan," he finally spoke, barely above a whisper. "How did you do all that? I mean, they were huge, and there were 3 of them." Ethan chuckled softly, shaking his head. "It's not about being bigger, Liam. It's about being prepared, staying calm, and knowing when to act. But what if they come back?" "That guy said it wasn't over," Liam replied, his earlier bravado fading into genuine concern. Ethan paused, turning to face his brother. "If they do, we'll handle it," he affirmed seriously. "But listen to me, Liam. What happened today wasn't just about fighting. It was about standing up for myself and for you. But violence isn't the answer unless it's the last resort." Liam nodded slowly, absorbing his brother's wisdom. Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder and squeezed gently. "Remember, it's not about proving how strong you are. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone take that away from you." When they arrived home, their mother stood on the porch, arms crossed, looking concerned. "You're late," she said, her voice tinged with worry. Ethan hesitated. He glanced at Liam, who remained quiet. "Something happened at the park," Ethan admitted, choosing his words carefully to avoid escalating her concern unnecessarily. As he recounted the story, their mother's expression shifted from fear to pride. She listened intently, her lips pressed into a thin line, but her eyes glistened with emotion. "Ethan," she said when he finished, "I'm proud of you for protecting yourself and Liam. But promise me one thing, don't ever take risks like that unless you have no other choice." "I promise," Ethan replied, meaning it. That night, as Ethan lay in bed replaying everything in his mind, the biker's aggression, the crowd's reaction, and the lingering words of the leader, he couldn't shake off the feeling that this was far from over. He had learned long ago that fear only had power if you allowed it. Instead, he felt a quiet sense of purpose, reminding himself that the world wasn't always fair. Yet moments like these proved that courage and discipline could make a difference. Michael savored the memory of standing up for not just himself, but for Liam and others who might need encouragement, embodying the essence of resilience. The days turned into weeks, and the memory of the confrontation became a common topic of discussion in the community. Ethan wasn't one to boast, but the way he stood up against the bikers inspired others around him. Parents shared stories with their kids about bravery. However, the incident wasn't forgotten by the bikers either. One evening, as Ethan and Liam were finishing their homework, the power suddenly flickered, plunging the room into darkness. Ethan leaped up, instinctively moving to the window, where he could see shadows moving outside. Then came the gravelly sound of motorcycle engines revving nearby. "They are back," Liam whispered, panic evident in his voice. Ethan sighed, his heart racing. "Stay by my side," he instructed, pulling his little brother close. As the bikes rolled into their driveway, a sense of determination ignited in Ethan. He squinted, seeing the burly leader step off his bike, flanked by the two other bikers. Their faces reflected anger mingled with something else, perhaps a need for reassurance or a desire for intimidation. "What do you want?" Ethan asked, stepping out onto the porch, his posture remaining steady. The leader sneered, his bravado not quite as convincing as before. "You embarrassed us in front of your little crowd. We don't forget that." Ethan's mind raced, strategizing. This wasn't just about him. It was now about Liam. Showing weakness now could place them both in jeopardy. But also, he didn't want another fight. "This isn't the way to handle things," he replied, keeping his voice steady. The burly man shook his head. "I'm not here to talk. We want a rematch. You think you're tough? Let's prove it." Ethan felt a wave of frustration wash over him. Proving toughness doesn't come from aggression. You might think you're strong, but real strength is shown through restraint. If someone were to threaten us again, maybe then it's different. The tension in the air shifted, the men seemingly unsure. But then one of the bikers, the one with a bruised rib from earlier, stepped forward. "You really think you can lecture us? You're just a kid." That was when Ethan decided to shift the conversation. "Maybe I am, but you three seem to have a lot to learn about respect. It's not just about size or strength. It's about how you treat people," he said, maintaining eye contact with the leader. The burly man hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his eyes before he stepped back. Ethan could see the internal battle raging, a bruised ego versus the need for dignity. "I'm not going to fight you. Not again," he said. "If you want to prove something, I suggest redirecting your energy into something that empowers you, not insults someone smaller than you." And just like that, something shifted in the air. The bikers softened, caught in a moment of reflection. "Maybe we're not so different," the leader finally admitted, his voice begrudgingly respectful. "But that doesn't change the fact that we're not happy." Ethan nodded slowly. "Change takes time, and sometimes the hardest fights are with yourself. You've got the power to choose differently. Walk away." Eventually, their silence turned into murmurs, and without another word, the bikers hopped on their motorcycles again, engines roaring to life. As they rode away, Ethan felt relief wash over him. The confrontation had transformed into something that wasn't just about sides. It was about the possibility of understanding. "Wow, Ethan," Liam breathed, wide-eyed. "You stood your ground." Ethan chuckled, ruffling his brother's hair. "It's not just about standing your ground. It's about standing for what's right." And in those moments, as the moon rose high above them, Ethan knew that every challenge faced not only strengthened him but offered powerful lessons in resilience, compassion, and the courage to stand up for oneself, even when it wasn't just about size, but about heart. Weeks later, Ethan stood at the community center, leading a workshop on conflict resolution and self-defense for kids. Inspired by his own experiences, he wanted to empower others to stand up against intimidation through discipline and strength. The room was filled with eager young faces, looking up to him as the model of quiet strength. As he recounted his story, not just with bikers but with other challenges, he made sure to stress the importance of choosing wisdom over violence. True strength, he told them, comes not from overpowering others, but from learning how to lift each other up. In the back of the room sat Liam, watching his brother with pride. In that moment, surrounded by kids eager to learn, Ethan felt like he was finally making a difference, not just in his life, but in the lives of others around him. He understood that the power of standing up could ripple through a community and create change, one small act of courage at a time.